This is St. Mark's Episcopal Church, Richmond, Texas. I am Chris Abbott, a Christian formation teacher. This lesson is Kids Kingdom, and it's intended for youth in grades 1 through 5. And if you haven't already joined us, we'd certainly love to have you join us. Contact the church office or me, and we'll get you on board and get you the Bible at home and the activities and the materials so that you can be completing the activities that the rest of the kids are doing as we progress through the year. Last week we took a look at Peter's denial and how Jesus was able to predict that he was going to be betrayed, and he also predicted that Peter was going to be denying him. And then you made the shrinky-dink roosters to remind us of the crow the rooster that crowed when Peter had denied knowing Jesus and being one of his disciples. All right. This week, we're going to go way back in Jesus' life to when he was a young boy and take a look at an episode in his life then. If you would turn to page 200 and page 201. As I oftentimes remind you at the beginning of the story, and just take a quick look at the map so that you can understand what we're talking about here. Once again, remember that Jesus is from the Galilee area, Nazareth, but in this story that we're going to be reading today, he and his Mary and Joseph have traveled down to Jerusalem. So this is quite a distance to have traveled. Keep that in mind as we begin this story. The other thing that you need to remember about this story is that it's taking place at Passover time. We talked about Passover earlier this year. Passover is a big festival for those of the Jewish faith, and it's remembering the time that the Israelites were in Egypt as slaves, and God was trying to help the Israelites get out of Egypt and back home. And one of the things had been to a plague that had been sent to the Egyptians to help convince them, and one of them was that the children in their families were going to be killed. And so the Israelites were warned to go out and paint the door stoop or paint the door entranceway with blood, and that way the killing would be passed over, and that family would not be having anybody killed. It would be Passover. And so that's why Passover is an important feast to the Jewish people. So, in this story, Jesus is about 12 years old, and he has traveled with Mary and Joseph from Nazareth down to Jerusalem, and the story mainly takes place in the temple. The picture at the top of page 201 is the temple that Jesus would have been in this story. This is Herod's Temple. Herod's Temple was a replacement that was built on the same spot that Solomon's Temple had been built on. And later on, this temple is destroyed by the Romans. But for our purposes today, this story is taking place in Herod's temple. Okay, if you follow along with me on page 200 and 201. Jesus is found in the temple. Every year at the festival of Passover, Joseph and Mary went to Jerusalem, as was the custom. When Jesus was 12, they took him with them. After the celebrations had finished, they set off for home, making the long journey, as they always did, with a party of friends and relatives. They had been on the road for a whole day before they realized that Jesus was not with them. At first they thought he must be with some of their friends' children, but he was nowhere to be seen. Anxiously, Mary and Joseph returned to Jerusalem, and for 3 days they searched the city without success. Desperate with worry, they decided to go to the temple, and there they saw Jesus. He was sitting in the middle of a group of wise men and teachers, talking and listening and answering questions. All these distinguished men were amazed at the wisdom and understanding of this child of 12. "How could you have left us like that?" his parents asked him. "Why did you not tell us where you were going to be? For 3 days we have been searching everywhere for you." "But why did you need to search?" said Jesus, puzzled. "Did you not know that this would be I would be in my Father's house?" Mary and Joseph did not understand what he meant by this. Then Jesus left the temple and returned with his parents to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And you can see the picture of Jesus on page 200, and he's sitting on the floor with all of these leaders of the Jewish faith, and they're talking and they're listening and they're asking questions, and he's answering and he's asking questions, and they're sharing all of this back and forth. And here come Mary and Joseph, and on page 201, and they're of course shocked to see him sitting there talking with all of these leaders in the temple. So the first question would be, do you think that Jesus was being disobedient to his parents? Well, we have to look at him in two ways here. We have to look at him as both a human being and as a divine leader. And of course, he calls it his Father's house, and Mary and Joseph are a little confused about that. But in Jesus's mind, he's in the temple, and this is his Lord, this is his Father's home, and this is where he belongs. And so to him, he probably didn't think that there was anything wrong with what he had done. He had stayed behind to continue his learning and his teaching. Was he being disobedient to God? Well, probably not. God wanted him to be there in the temple so that he could teach and learn and listen and talk and do all of those things. So there are two ways of looking at that Jesus is a divine being and Jesus is a human being, all at the same time. What are we supposed to understand from this story? What's the nitty-gritty for us? Well, the nitty-gritty is that we too need to be learning about the Lord. And our way to do that is to be in church and go to worship and do Kids Kingdom and all of these things so that we can better understand the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, the stories about Jesus, and all of these things that we have to learn. And the best way to do that is to be at church and talking and sharing and listening and learning, all of those things going on, just like what was happening to Jesus as a young boy. The question here is that if you pretend for a second that you're Jesus, what would Jesus be telling you on Sunday morning to get you motivated to get up and get going and get to St. Mark's? Now, of course, things have been a little different because of the pandemic and COVID and all of that. But basically, in a more normal time, what is Jesus wanting you to do? Well, he loves you. He wants you to be in his church. He wants to be able to tell you more about his life and how we should be living and what we should be doing. And he wants you to be there so that he can be doing that and be telling you those things. What does he want you to be doing? He wants you to be showing love and kindness to each other, helping each other, giving to each other. All of those things that he wants you to be doing. So, You know that I always have a challenge for you each week. My challenge is, what is it that you could be telling your friends about your church or your faith or what you know about Jesus? Well, could you tell them this story? Sure. Or could you tell them the story about Peter's denial and how Jesus had said, "You're going to be denying me," and Peter said, "No way." And yet, that happened. What are those stories that you remember that you could be telling your friends? What are those things that you can do to show that you love others? Maybe collecting canned food for needy people, maybe helping a younger brother or sister with some kind of a project or homework that they might be working on, collecting money and giving something maybe to a charity to help those people who are less fortunate than you are. All of those things would be things that Jesus would love you to be doing. And that would best your way to show back to him that you're listening, you're following, you're doing, and following his instructions. So, I am just now, just like I did last week, I forgot the opening prayer. So here we go again. Here is the prayer we should have begun with. Dear Lord, may we all continue to grow wise and strong. May we please both God and the people God has given us. Thank you for the lessons so that we might learn more about your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, the lesson this week in your little supply bag, you will find that you had a couple of pieces of material, and I cut it out with pinking shears around the outside, and you had some Sharpies, different colored Sharpies. And what you're going to be doing on the piece of fabric is you're going to be drawing some sort of symbol that will make you think of church. Well, I chose a cross, and I put the Christian symbol of the fish inside the cross. Maybe to you it would be a dove, or praying hands, or a column, or a door inside, going on inside a church. Whatever you choose to draw on your fabric, it's up to you. Some sort of symbol of church and Christianity. And you have more than one piece of fabric, so you're certainly welcome to do more than one symbol. Okay. As you know, we always end our lesson with the Lord's Prayer. So, the Lord be with you. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. This concludes this lesson about Jesus as a young boy in the temple, teaching and learning and listening. Yes, indeed. I'd sure love to see some of the symbols that you put on your fabric. If your parents can send me some of those pictures, I'd certainly love to see them. I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. And so, goodbye from now from St. Mark's, Richmond, Texas. Bye-bye.